Today's episode is brought to you by Freedom Project Academy. Looking for a K-12 classical online school built on Judeo-Christian values? FPA is enrolling now for the fall. Request your free information packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedom, F-O-R, school.com.
It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. I'm Dr. Duke, joined by that one and only font of knowledge, David Fioraso. What font would you be? Times New Roman?
What font?
I don't know. But before we get started, you please go ahead and hit that share button so we can educate many, many more patriots around the country. Today, we start in Washington State, where the West Coast, nothing ever seems to go very well there when it comes to education. We have a favorite sex shop school board president who is back in the news, and this time it involves sexual pleasure classes for kids as young as 9 years old. This is Jen Mason. We've talked about her before. You can see a picture of Jen on the screen. She is the director of a sex shop called Wink Wink in Bellingham, Washington. She also, unfortunately, is a director of a school board in that same town. And the first thing I would like to point out before we go to some video on this is, Dave, what do you think about the conflict of interest? Can you imagine if I owned a Christian bookstore and I was also a director of a school board and I was requiring school kids to come to my Christian bookstore for seminars? Do you think that would fly very far?
Separation of church and state. Oh, no, you could not possibly get away with that.
There's no separation of state and orgasm accordingly.
Yeah, sex and school, there's no separation.
Makes perfect sense. The conflict of interest here is what bothers me. Take a look at some background. It's an interview between Tucker Carlson and Jason. This is an interview between Tucker Carlson and Jason Rantz on this very story.
Oh, this story is so much creepier than I think people realize. So Jen Mason is inviting parents to bring kids as young as 9 years old to a private workshop next month. It's titled Uncringe Academy, and it's billed as an inclusive sex ed class, which she says offers, quote, empowerment and information rather than shame, fear, and judgment. Okay, but it also offers what I think most people might consider wildly inappropriate content for kids. Amongst the topics taught to these 9-year-olds will be gender and sexual identities, sexual anatomy for pleasure, what is sex, kinds of solo and partnered sexual activities, plus safer sex practices for all kinds of sexual activities. Now, when I asked the school board director about the material, she kind of downplayed a lot of it. She claimed that discussions about sex acts would not actually be the main focus of this course. But how does she define sex to these kids? It turns out rather nebulously. She told me in part, sex can really be any activity that a person does with themselves or others to become aroused. There's no such thing as real sex, and it's okay if your definition of sex is different from someone else's, a woman after Bill Clinton's heart. If you haven't been creeped out up until this point, how about this? The workshop's being held at Wink Wink Boutique, which is an all-ages sex shop in downtown Bellingham. You see, when Mason isn't actually serving on the school board, she runs Wink Wink as the owner, where she's also a sex coach. So these kids will walk past edible lubricant and suede floggers and sex toys named the Womanizer on the way to learn about inappropriate sex topics.
Oh, I just saw a reference to Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation there that's driven by Marxism. And let's just look at what's in the window, or actually the name of the store, Wink Wink. Above that, pleasure is our revolution. Dr. Duke, if that was you mentioned it earlier, if this was a Christian idea or store that said something like, I don't know, faith in Christ or the Bible is our revolution, that place would be boycotted, shut down, censored, shadow banned. But pleasure, I guess anything goes. And that's the revolution, right?
Well, what gets me, this is a sex shop for people of all ages. So in other words, apparently there are no limits to who can walk in here. The average third grader can meander in there and survey the goods and all the paraphernalia and sit in on classes. It's remarkable. And I want to go one step deeper with this too. Go back to the pleasure as our revolution, Mike, okay? This is the thing that really bothers me. This is what education has come to in the 21st century. Yes. I mean, pleasure is one of those things you don't have to teach anybody. I mean, think about that. It is the most animalistic aspect of being human. It requires no teaching, no knowledge. It doesn't require any intellect. It doesn't require any education. Everybody can pleasure themselves. Everybody can figure out what is pleasurable to them. I mean, the fact that we're spending so much time, so much money, so much effort, completely transforming curricula all across the country to make it pleasure-based sex, I mean, who needs to be taught any of this garbage? This shows you what education is really focusing on, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's also creepy. You know, it's pleasure. It's anything goes, whatever makes you feel good, right? I guess in the 70s, it was if you feel good, do it. Was that... Anyway, what I'm thinking is even deeper and more demonic. Remember Aleister Crowley, leader of the Satanic Church? Do what thou wilt will be the whole of the law. Like that means whatever you do, do whatever you will, not God's will, but whatever you want to do. And this is what's dangerous about this. People don't see the satanic elements behind attracting young children to do what, first of all, is devious and what will harm them, but then in the mixture of adults, as you mentioned, and, you know, parents are going, well, wait a minute, she's on a school board and she's promoting this shop, so I hope there's more blowback and pushback on this, but I'm not keeping my fingers crossed or holding my breath.
I like what you said about Aleister Crowley. Isn't it amazing how from Crowley in the 50s and 60s, do what thou wilt, basically, how is that different than Nike's Just Do It? I mean, these are the exact same. One is mainstream consumerism, other one used to be demonic, but we can't talk about that anymore. And take a look at the title of the course, of this course that she's going to be teaching, At Her Own Business. So in other words, she is using the kids under her care as a board director to bring them into her own place of business and to capitalize off of them monetarily, even if they're not getting paid directly, monetarily, and for the better growth of her business. It's called Uncringe Academy. So apparently anybody who doesn't want to talk to 9-year-olds about sex is cringy. I got news for you. This Miss Mason, is the definition of cringy. Having 9-year-old kids wander around a sex shop only to be lectured about sex by you. And this isn't biological sex. This is attitudes and ethos and morality. You are literally teaching kids to pursue pleasure without responsibility.
With all the censorship taking place on social media platforms, we've made it easy to keep up with your favorite content. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app in your app store. Get access to 18 new videos a week, plus thousands of archived shows, lecture series, and educational animations. Download the Freedom Project Media app on your Apple TV, Roku, tablet, or phone, and make sure you allow for notifications to keep you informed.
All right, we may have a theme here going today, but the next story is some parents concerned over puberty blockers video shown to 7th graders. First of all, my issue, Duke, with this headline, some parents. There's a few parents. There's a smattering of parents. Not all parents, not most, but some are concerned. That's a deceptive headline to begin with. Of course, it's out of CBS Albany. But the takeaway, Katie and I have talked about this quite a bit when I filled in for you before. Parents were shocked. Parents were absolutely shocked, but it's only some parents.
Well, not only is it some parents, like why aren't they all upset?
Yeah.
But how could you be a mom in America today and be shocked by anything that goes on in your public schools?
Yeah.
I mean, we've reached the point. This show is a testament. Running on what 4.5 years now we've been doing this, and we've been talking about these stories. We never run out of outrage. I mean, three stories a day is not enough for us because of all the craziness in the news. So take a look at what's going on here. Take a look at this video from Amaze. We've dealt with Amaze many times, David. This is one of those companies you got to be very careful, moms and dads. This will never show up on your curriculum sheet. You'll never know that your kids are exposed to these videos from Amaze unless they tell you. This is so horrible, right? That in the wake of Common Core, organizations like like Amaze are creating video, oftentimes highly sexualized, that teachers can download in the classroom and they'll never tell you. Take a look at this one for little kids, normalizing puberty blockers.
A person who is transgender is someone whose internal sense of their gender, being a boy, girl, or something else, doesn't match their physical body. People who feel this way sometimes feel anxious when they begin to reach puberty and their body starts to change in ways that don't match their internal sense of their gender. These feelings are totally normal. If you feel you want more time to explore how you feel about your gender before your body starts to change, it's important to talk with a parent, counselor, therapist, or doctor about the feelings you have regarding your gender. After some discussion and counseling, you may be referred to an endocrinologist. Endocrinologists specialize in hormones, and they are the most likely to prescribe puberty blockers for someone who wants them. Puberty blockers are medications that will stop your body from changing. They are usually given as an injection or an implant. They block the production of hormones to stop or delay the physical changes of puberty. The effects of the medication are only temporary, so if a person stops using puberty blockers, the physical changes of puberty will begin again.
We were shocked when we found out that this was being presented to them without our knowledge. And the fact that it was medical information that was being relayed to them with no physician, no doctor present, and these are prescription drugs that are life-altering.
I understand that these are parents who are trying to do what they think is best for their child. My response is, in a very simple way, LGBTQ people exist. I am almost 40 and LGBTQ as a gay man, but I was also 5. I was also 7 the first time someone called me the F word.
Yeah, you're gay, not transgender, which means you're not trying to hack off somebody's body parts or stop their puberty. If you want to make the argument you were gay from the time you were 5 years old, you knew it then. Do you not see the difference there? And your response to moms and dads who are concerned to give in this kind of shockingly traumatic medicine to kids, your only response is, I know what it's like to be gay. That doesn't cut it.
No, this is interesting. First of all, the science, right? Anything that you take or inject can be redone or they won't have long-lasting effects. Is there research on that? But secondly, when I saw the video, I saw the scissors come out, and I'm glad it was the girl going for her hair than the boy.
And not something else, exactly.
Yeah, the scissors. That's kind of frightening. But first, let me just say this. Kudos to New York for having a tip line to expose this madness. The tip line is called Crisis in the Classroom. And school districts across the U.S., pay attention. Tip lines for parents. Go ahead.
Let me just throw this out there, though. Given what you know about the complete dominance of radical liberals in the state of New York, from the assembly all the way down to the governor's office, do you think anyone's on the other line, at the other end of that line, who's going to willing to be able to stop this? Yeah. It's nice that you can call in New York and complain, but who are you complaining to, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but go ahead.
Hey, let's check out the school's response here. This is really interesting. Of course, we know that there are 7th grade and younger students and their families who are experiencing depression, anxiety, fear, and thoughts of self-harm because of the isolation and loneliness and lack of affirmation they feel. That's one thing, but what does that have to do with changing their entire sex or gender?
Think about what you just read there. These are kids who are deeply, deeply mentally unstable. These are kids who are going through all sorts of intellectual and mental problems. And your response to them is not to treat them, not to get them help, not to get them counseling. Your response as the left in this country is to alter their body forever. Name another mental health or problem that you would treat this way. Somebody's an alcoholic, and so rather than getting them help or counseling or try to wean them off of alcohol, you're going to try to make sure that they have a Nerf car, so when they get in and drive, they can't hurt anybody. Is that what you would do? Doesn't make any sense.
Let's continue how they responded to this. This particular assignment, now they're justifying, right? Get ready for the excuses. This particular assignment was part of a 7th grade health unit on puberty and physical and emotional changes that may be experienced during the period of puberty, a topic that is part of the New York State Health Standards. There it is, a certified health teacher, certified. Provides instruction and information that is designed not only to educate students, but to ensure that all students feel included And affirmed.
I ask you again, if this is part of the state of New York's health standards, what is that tip line going to get you, Mom? Don't rely on anybody else. Get your kids out of those schools.
Amen.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
All right, prepare to be shocked. I'm kidding. National Education Association Teachers Union is proposing a revolution, well, that too. They're proposing a resolution to change mother to birthing parent. Because why? As this woke generation knows, a man can now give birth. So they have to do that. No, okay, so the White House responded. I'd love to be able to have you guys see this. Go ahead.
And the First Lady is a proud member of the NEA. I am not going to speak about an organization's policy or change of policy. I am not their spokesperson, not something that I'm going to do. Yes, the Vice President was there on Tuesday. She spoke at NEA. And when they did regular order, when they did their regular business, she left. So she was also not part of that discussion. Look, this is a policy change. That is not something that I can speak to. I refer you to NEA.
Yeah, now first of all, notice how the spokesman for the president, despite the fact that the vice president was there, despite the fact that Jill, the first lady, right, is a member of that, she's not qualified, she's unwilling to comment. If you can't comment on that kind of proximity to the president, what are you doing there? Number one. And number two, notice how this is all about erasing women. I mean, call me a TERF if you want to. Call me a feminist, right, a TERF, right? A trans exclusionary feminist, right? I might recognize lesbians, I suppose, but I don't recognize transgenders. That's what a TERF is, right? Notice what she says here, what happens here. They're coming after women. Notice how no one's trying to rename men. No one's talking about getting rid of the word father. They're only coming after women, and because women naturally and biologically are the only ones, and I'm going to repeat that, only ones who can get pregnant and give birth. So people like J.K. Rowling are exactly right. This is not about mainstreaming transgenderism. It's about doing away with gender and biological sex altogether.
Okay, let's look at this on screen here, what they're actually doing. So the NEA will inform states and locals of the following sample language that may be put in contracts that is LGBTQ plus, QIA plus inclusive. The language will be as follows: parental leave instead of maternity leave, parent instead of mother or father, birthing parent instead of mother, and non-birthing parent instead of father. To me, this is just so ridiculous, Duke. I'm sorry. It's so hard for the average American, maybe, especially if you don't have kids in school now and you haven't for a while, to look at this and go, this can't be a true story. They can't be going down this road. Well, anxiety comes into this. They're playing on people's weaknesses. It says, according to the NEA's alleged proposal, using such language would relieve members of their anxiety over how a board of education or solicitor defines these maternity leave, mother, father. And so anxiety over defining words. Get these Democrats to their safe spaces quickly.
Yeah, first of all, you use the word average moms and dads. I'm gonna replace that. It's way more than average moms and dads. It's statistically huge numbers of moms and dads who are bothered by this. Most people in this country do not think this is logical or makes any sense.
Exactly.
If this was on a referendum, Dave, if this was something we could vote on, it would be voted down outrageously. We call it ratioed, right? It would be ratioed. It's so unpopular. And yet a very small group of people, sadly, so many of them involved with education, are going to push this on our kids. One of the final statements they make is, quote, the National Education Association believes that in order to achieve racial and social justice, what does transgenderism have to do with race or justice? Nothing. Educators must acknowledge the existence of white supremacy culture as a primary root cause of institutional racism,
there it is,
structural racism,
there it is,
and white privilege. What does any of that have to do with gender? pure Black Lives Matter, Antifa, socialist rhetoric.
All right, before we go, let's take a little time to fill you in on some other stories we've been following. Let's start in Venice, Italy. Thanks, guys, for giving me a shout out there. Where the world's first tourist tax is being implemented in an effort to limit the number of visitors to the city. The island, which measures 2 square miles, has 50,000 permanent residents, but in addition sees 52,000 visitors every day, or 19 million a year. So, to deal with the overcrowding, the city is charging visitors $3 to $10 a day to tour the city with a day pass QR code on their phone. Now, visitors who fail to pay the toll could face up to a $300 fine. So they found another way to rake in some dough. Now, the tourist tax is a compromise for the permanent residents who claim they are outnumbered by the non-stop congestion of visitors taking over the streets of Venice. Now, Duke, you're a fan of Italians. Thank you.
Hey, we're both,
your thoughts on,
we're both Goombas. Couple of good old boys here,
yeah,
right?
So what do you think about the tax?
Paisanos. Well, I think, in this case, I'm all for it.
Really?
In this sense, I've been to Venice. It is a very, very precarious city, surrounded with very ancient buildings, surrounded by water. It is, and you think about the artistic treasures that are housed in that small little space. Yeah. I don't think $3 to $10 a day to be able to bask in that. And it is, the population of Venice is so small; they are overwhelmed. Yeah. It would be like living in some small town, relatively some mid-sized town somewhere that was very isolated, and then having 3 times that a number of people driving through your town in a day. Yeah. It causes a lot of problems.
Okay, I kind of side with you on this one. But speaking of travel, one of the world's largest cruise ships is being scrapped before it ever takes to the water? What? The Global Dream 2 mega ship is headed to the junkyard after the shipbuilder declared bankruptcy. Oh my goodness. The gigantic 1,100-foot cruise line was set to offer accommodations for over 9,000 guests and a 2,200-member crew at a cost of $1.8 billion. Now, since a buyer couldn't be found, the machinery and fittings will now be sold off, while the hull and will most likely be sold as scrap. Now, it's not all bad news. The Global Dream 1 and the sister ship started construction back in 2018. It's still on track to be completed, but with far fewer amenities. So they got to cut back somewhere. Now, finally, if cruising the high seas isn't your thing, why not bring that luxury to your backyard? A family-owned business in Lakeland, Florida, unveiled an incredibly unique pool that is created entirely with a 3D printer. Take a look at this.
It's amazing. The new technology, guys, is like, normally they would build the molds that make these fiberglass pools out of wood and plastic and rubber, and it takes months to make them. They can now print any size pool like you have right here in a matter of days, and they 3D print it. The best part about it is it's completely recyclable, so when they're done, they can put it through a shredder and reuse those plastic pellets. The best part about the print is they can make it any shape they want, so It's really genius what they do right now.
Is it easier than getting your own custom pool to get one prefabricated?
It really is, because it takes a lot less time. So you can still get installations right now for the fall, where it might take you a year or two to get on a pool company's list right now.
Interesting. Well, San Juan Pool says the pool can be delivered and fully installed in a single day, and prices range from $17,000 to $38,000. Duke, you ready for a swim?
All I gotta say is maybe they should have built that huge cruiser from one of those printers. Right? Then we wouldn't have to scrap it. Right?
Right.
Problem solved.
Yeah. Hey, that wraps up this segment. More to come next time.
And there we go. For all of us at Freedom Project, you need to stay educated, my friends, now more than ever.